Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Haven podcast. I want to say that it's been a while, but you guys just recently got an episode because it never uploaded. But for us, it's been a while because we haven't done it in about a week or so. But thank you for tuning in. This is episode 9 of our, I guess, MCU talk. But in our podcast, if you're new around here, we will like to eventually get to the point that we're talking about different nerdy things, and it's going to be great. So I hope you tune in. My name is M9 if you're brand new to the channel, and with me I have John Aaron. John, how's it going, buddy?
Hello, Mr. M9. Hello, everyone. I would just like to congratulate Mr. 9 on developing these manipulative gaslighting strategies of basically preparing me every single episode with this introductory line that I will one day be forced to watch Game of Thrones, for this podcast. And
That's the point.
don't think I'm not noticing, okay? I am on to you.
Yeah, eventually we'll talk about other nerdy things. Cough.
Cough!
Yeah. Oh man, that I guess you know me too well then.
Just like you know me too well, and I cannot wait to hear your opinion about this movie because my favorite episodes are those where we actually differ in our views and where we can try to convince ourselves of the merits of our own perspectives.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to be one because I kind of have a feeling where you're going to lean as opposed to where I'm leaning towards this movie. And this movie is Thor: The Dark World. Not a very popular movie among the MCU fans, but that's what we're here to talk about. So let's get to it. I didn't like this movie a whole lot. There are some cool things about this movie that I do enjoy. For example, Loki's arc and the development between Loki and Thor quite a bit. We see Jane in a more humanized, vulnerable position. Um, some of the humor kind of works and stuff like that, but this movie takes a huge tonal shift. And how did you feel about it?
That is literally my first note in this document. Even when I watched it for the very first time, not really knowing much about the MCU world, what comes ahead, what was before was kind of like throwaway. I actually watched this movie like randomly after it was like years ago, when I watched the first Thor, and I was just like, this is kind of interesting, watch the second one. During my very, very first watch before this MCU journey, where I actually watched like all the movies one after another, I didn't really like it. I thought it was definitely dark. It was kind of not exactly uneventful, but it kind of solidified my belief that this franchise is probably not for me. And this movie somehow kind of convinced me to no longer continue on the MCU journey. So this was the very last movie that I actually watched during my initial like curiosity phase. But then I
Interesting.
watched it two more times. The first time, of course, during my very first attempt to finish the MCU universe, and then I watched it like a few days ago because I wanted to make sure that it's fresh on my mind. And the more times I watch this movie, the more times I like it, not just for the quality of the movie as a standalone movie, but also for how much it ties in to the future movies, to the overall universe, and how important it is to develop like these relationships, and how much it makes certain characters that are not primary, how much it helps them come across as complete badasses and
Hmm.
powerful individuals more than any other movie, probably in the entire MC universe. So we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Of course, there is going to be a very, very long section on why Natalie Portman is the worst fucking human being in the MC universe.
Oh goodness.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So I completely agree. The tonal shift of this movie just hits you straight in the face from the very beginning.
Hmm.
And I love it because this is what I want from my superhero movies. I want it to be dark and gritty.
Yeah. So while I don't disagree with that per se, I kind of feel I don't know if this is a personal preference, but I kind of feel like Chris Hemsworth shines the most when he's being comical. I think his comedic timing is kind of amazing. And in some of the Thor movies originally, in the first Thor movie, and when we see him in like Avengers and things like that, they use that perfectly. And I think in this one, they changed it so much to the point that you lose a bit of that, a bit of that charm from Thor. And I get that this situation, or I guess the story that's happening in this specific movie doesn't call for that comedic spirit, but it's something that I immediately missed. It's I I couldn't really enjoy myself or have as much fun with this movie because it lost that sense of innocence and charm that Thor had, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
I absolutely see your perspective here, and to a certain degree, I agree. But the way I see this, I actually really enjoyed the comedy and the humor in this movie, and this is my favorite depiction of Thor from the MCU universe
Oh,
because. I cannot stand the goofy, the Thor that is not really supposed to be taken seriously,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
one that just makes fun of himself, that comes across as a clown, that is kind of weak but only strong, when the plot needs to move. This, like, the few jokes in this movie that are present are very subtle, but that's what makes them, to me, like, much more digestible, much better, much more fitting. Like, for example, the moment he just comes inside their little sciencey hideout and he just puts his hammer on like a coat hanger, I thought that was fucking
It's
hilarious,
so great.
but it didn't put Thor down. It didn't make him look like a complete crybaby that just deserves to be laughed at. It was just a well executed joke that was funny, subtle, and I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
Other
I
things, like, go for it.
No, I agree because later on we'll kind of get into how some movies I don't know, downplay certain characters just for the joke or the moment. And I think that the the moments that are few and far in between kind of tend to stick out more. And I do think that for the serious tone that this movie had going, the jokes that they put in there did work well whenever they were put in there without them taking you out of what they were trying to go for.
Indeed, indeed. And I also enjoyed the first Thor movie because of it. I thought the comedy was good, but it was it never really stepped over the line where I would consider it forced or goofy. That's unfortunately where all the other upcoming Thor movies for me just don't
Hmm.
work on that front because I just see them some of the jokes there as forced and goofy, not really fitting like the overall, I would say, stakes, the danger of the situation. I really enjoyed the comedy and humor in this movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, but I don't think that's one of the biggest problems this movie has.
Definitely not.
Because I think that that's actually kind of like the decent thing that goes about this movie. I love well, let's get into something specific. How did you feel about Loki in this movie?
How did I feel about Loki? You're trying to wrap this podcast up. I can see your strategy, but I'm not going to let you because we are skipping over way too many important scenes that I feel obliged to bring up. So I'm just going to do that.
All right, all right.
I will start with the fact that I didn't really like the bad guys in this movie. The elves. I thought
I
their
agree.
spaceships look fucking stupid. Who the fuck creates like a spaceship that only has one wing? That would just be so impractical to like aviate or fly with. And we could see it, like it kept crashing into everything, and it was just stupid. I thought that was just stupid. Overall, I just hate this in the Thor movies. The fact that you get the mixture of medieval Viking stuff, you
Fantasy.
get the mixture of fantasy, you get these cyberpunk futuristic weapons and spaceships. It's a bit unnecessary, but I get it. It's part of the universe, so I'm just kind of trying to get over it. But I need to bring it up because
Yeah, it's like it's mystical space mythology. And so it gets a little convoluted, but the villains was also a point that I was going to bring up eventually because I think Malekith or whatever the hell his name was, um,
Malekith.
is probably one of the weakest MCU villains, like overall. I
Definitely.
I did not like the Dark Elves. I maybe they were underdeveloped. Maybe it was just kind of like a wasted opportunity when it came to like what you could have done with them. But I just I didn't really buy his motives that much. I didn't really buy the threat that much. And yeah, and that's a big deal when it comes to some of these movies for me. It's like if the villain doesn't do much for me, but it's a conversation that we've had before, right? Like these movies focus on their heroes, not their villains. We get it,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
it was weak.
completely agree. Not only they looked stupid, and not only their armor was kind of weird, and their technology was kind of meh, but yeah, his strategy, the reasons for him being evil made no sense. Just pick one. You know, you want to avenge your kind, you want to destroy the Asgard. How do you get from that to I want to destroy the entire universe?
Right.
I'm evil. It makes no sense. You know, like sorry, my sister is being very loud.
I was like, yeah, T-Rex back there.
The gimmick of the Aether, I kind of liked. I thought it was cool.
Yes.
I thought it did what it was supposed to, and I like the fact that we are very, very slowly and very vaguely being introduced to the fact that this is actually an Infinity Stone, and we will only learn like in the final portion of the movie during the post-credit scene. I thought it was super cool because we are actually aware of the two Infinity Stones. I'm sorry for jumping like all the way to the end of the movie, but just
yeah.
it really worked for me on this in this regard because like there is a lot of mystery. We even get like a few kind of hints here and there for those who already like saw the movies before that, or those who are familiar with the source material. So I thought that it was very well executed. So weaker bad guys, but the Aether itself was a part of the bad guys, and that kind of saved it for me.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of something that is to be said about the movie as a whole for me is this for me feels like one of the weaker movies, but in the overall image of the MCU, some of the things that happen in this movie are very important and they carry a lot of weight. And with the Ether, I absolutely love just like how like what you and I said about the Tesseract, how in itself it was very important and in itself it was being chased down and hunted down for what it was, but nobody knew what it was capable of, right? Nobody knew the entire scope. Well, some people knew, but we won't get there yet. Nobody knows the entire scope of it. Like at that moment, that is the problem. Like that one thing. We're not thinking about a bigger picture. And with the Ether, they kind of did the same thing, right? It was like, this is the issue, this is what it's causing, this is what's happening. But later on, that when we learn that it's an Infinity Stone, it's like it's just kind of, you know, like when you're going around a map and in a game and it's like clearing as the more you travel, and then you get to see the bigger picture. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm really enjoying like rewatching this movie and actually knowing what's happening. It's like, oh, I know something these characters don't yet. I'm smart.
Yeah, and that's kind of
a good feeling.
It's a fun thing about the MCU too is almost like your rewatches are almost never the same. You always pick up on subtleties that were just there, but they were there like as an Easter egg, or they were there in the background. Like it wasn't supposed to stand out. But once you know the full image and you go back to see some of these things, you're like, wait a minute. And I think that that's so freaking cool.
Indeed. And thank you for allowing me this little tangent before we get to Loki, because I thought this was like an important thing to bring up. And to finally answer your question, like how did I feel about Loki? We once again cannot really answer this question before continuing like the premise of this movie and how it starts, because the movie starts out strong with Loki in front of his parents, and this unfortunately leads me to yet another tangent to bring up the most badass character of this movie and the entire Thor universe. One could even say the MCU universe, because I have to talk about Frigga, who I already called the best character in the Thor movie
Yeah, you love
before that.
Frigga.
Even though she was barely present there, like we already said our piece on her. The fact that she is this incredibly important character to be by Odin's side, and the fact that Odin is kind of a dick. And in this movie, Odin's not just a dick; he's a senile dick. He is just a gargantuan penis of a man, and he is blind, he is stupid, but he has one redeeming line that I will quote later. For now, all I can say is that even though Frigga is also badly in this movie, she doesn't give a shit, that Loki is there for his trial in front of his father. She is there to comfort him, she's there to help him, she's there to redeem him as a mother would. And what does
Right.
Odin do? He sends her away. She doesn't give a damn. She still says her piece, and then she leaves because she's a giga chat of a person, and I cannot love her more. I will, of course, love her more. That's a spoiler for the later parts of our podcast, but
Yep.
I just wanted to preface that.
Yeah, no, her character's great in the most subtlest of ways. For a character that's not focused on as much, man, her impact is felt with some of these characters.
Indeed, indeed. But it's not just her. The way the family drama in this movie was portrayed, I enjoyed so very much. I
Hmm.
love the conflict between Loki and Odin because both of them are right. Loki is a god compared to the normal humans. There is no doubt about that. But Odin is right too. He saved his ass from dying.
Right.
And if Loki played his cards better, he could have perhaps even inherited the throne. Thor fucking doesn't want it, He has Natalie Portman
Yeah.
with like, we'll get to her, but like his motivation is clear, and Thor is the right ruler of Asgard simply because of the fact that he doesn't want it. And I love that later Odin actually says it, I have this predicament. I have one son who wants the throne too much, who is kind of a crazy person, and then I have another person, I have another son who really deserves the throne, but he doesn't want it, so what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah, it's an
And I love that.
interesting situation. I definitely love it too. The family dynamic is so good, and it's just kind of building upon their individual stories, um, which are developed even more as the MCU goes on. I think the fact that if Loki had just been more patient and just waited for his turn, he could have had the throne. But it was the fact that Loki always felt overlooked. He always felt, like he was in Thor's shadow, and he always felt like he was never good enough because he knew that, later on in his adult life, he knew that he wasn't, Odin's son, but he was, right? It's so
Mhm.
it was just it's a lot of self doubt in Loki's mind that makes him not worthy of the throne. But
Indeed, indeed. And I
it's
love that we get to see this growth of both of them, of both Thor and Loki, because I have nothing bad to say about Thor in this movie. He is an incredible character. He's an incredible lead. I love who he turns into.
yeah.
This is peak Thor for me. And we also get to see like a few flashes of Loki having a potential to eventually, but he will of course need his own series, 2 seasons even, to get to peak Loki status.
Yeah.
He's definitely not peak Loki here. He's still emotional, he's still rowdy, and he is his own worst enemy, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But once he gets kicked down enough, he learns. But I think it's a very interesting story arc, and we'll see where he gets there when we get there.
Indeed, indeed. Frigga is the only reason you're still alive. Yet again, because of Frigga, we got to see the Loki TV show later. So this is one of the many reasons why Frigga is the best character for now.
Yeah. So one of the things that you talk about is skippable fight scenes. How much did you find yourself skipping through this?
Only the later parts, because for the like 75% of this movie, I was thoroughly engaged and I skipped basically nothing.
Hmm.
And during the later scenes, when it was the big fight, I only skipped like a few of those. But like to me, this entire movie, well, the 75% was a great cinema. For example, following Odin's disapproval of Thor being in love with Natalie Portman, like, hey, this bitch in front of you, can live 5,000 years old. Why don't you go, go out with her? Fuck Natalie Portman. She's probably gonna get sick, and die soon or
Oh my
something.
god.
Foreshadowing.
Oh jeez.
Screw your confused heart. Give me grandchildren right now and fuck off. Yet again, just Odin being an absolute dick. Would Frigga ever say that? No, absolutely not. She would treat her son with respect and dignity, and she would show the same courtesy to Natalie Portman too, though she doesn't deserve it.
But would Thor Asgard still be standing if Odin wasn't Odin? you know?
I feel like you need more convincing, and I am ready for that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What does Thor do next? Do you remember? Like
Uh
after this scene,
no, I do not.
he attends the party out of courtesy, one of those drinking parties after a victory. And,
In
he
Asgard,
finishes
right?
his apple juice in Asgard, or in one of the realms, that he just
Yeah,
saved.
yeah.
He finishes his apple juice, as a good boy. He leaves early before anyone notices. And I never thought I would say this, but this actually feels relatable because that's what I would do. And I never thought I would relate to Chris Hemsworth or Thor,
Or Thor.
of all people. But all I could say is, well played, Chris Hemsworth. I would have done the same. And then this gross, horny lady, I believe her name is Sif. I'll remember her from kicking Loki in the balls later, but we'll get to that. It's not in this movie.
Tread
This
lightly
gross,
because I love Sif.
this gross, horny lady invites him into her pants. I mean, for a drink, and he's like, "Nah, dog, I'm good. I already finished my apple juice."
Is that
And she
common
brings up,
terminology in Asgard?
oh, totally, totally. That's how they all talk. She brings up a few good points. I'll give you that. But that's not how you get the guy. You need to show respect to his choices. You need to show empathy, and you need to be like, I will protect your lady with all my might because I care about you. And that's how you potentially get the guy whenever she fucking kicks dirt, because she's Natalie Portman and she's very fragile. I will continue. Don't you worry.
Yeah. No.
Because we are slowly getting to the point as to why Natalie Portman is just the worst. What does she do? Now that we established how much of a good guy Thor is, what does Natalie Portman do? The exact opposite of Thor. She dates, she acts like a complete lunatic. She's being socially awkward to the point where this wonderful guy, Sean, I believe his name is, has to establish communication by writing a hi on a napkin and pass it over to her. I thought that was a very good move. I love Sean. He's amazing. He's too good for Natalie Portman, and my goodness, she deserved better. But it was a very cool scene, and I did enjoy it. And it was funny, and it's just then whenever Darcy shows up, we also need to talk about Darcy
Yes, we
because
do.
in the first movie she was kind of cool. I don't know how you thought about her. Do you see her as like a random sidekick, as like a Jar Jar Binks of the movie, or do you think she has potential?
I actually liked Darcy a lot more earlier on. Thor 1. I do think she kind of starts getting close to Jar Jar Binks as the movies go on. I think they see the popularity of and the silliness of the character, and they leaned on that quite a bit more. Up to the point that sometimes it's like, this girl's a doctor? It's like,
Yeah.
what?
That was a big leap. Like, I believe she mentioned that she studied like political science or something like that, and she just randomly ended up on this expedition with Natalie Portman. But I actually feel the opposite way about her. I thought in the first movie she was kind of interesting, maybe a bit annoying here and there, but in this one, I thought she was hilarious, and most importantly, she was hot. In terms of confidence,
Kat Dennings
hot
is
confidence.
hot. Let's be honest.
Yeah, very hot confidence, and I need to very much emphasize. I feel very attracted to her confidence because, like, the way she pulls the chair, and joins them in the dinner date and like starts spreading butter all over her bun. I wouldn't mind spreading butter all over her bun too, if you know what I mean. The way she like bosses the intern out throughout the movie is amazing to
Yeah,
me,
yeah, it's pretty funny.
and the confidence was very hot on her, and like it almost like entered a realm of BDSM which I never thought I would be into, but like with her, I might consider it.
Yeah, so I even though like I actually thought that they made her a little too silly sometimes, I do believe that when the humor relies on her, it's a bit better than when you try to make Thor too silly. Um and
Yes,
I prefer that because you have a girl that yeah, she has some silliness, she has some snarkiness, she's sarcastic, she's funny. So especially now at this point where Thor has, matured and is actually in a more serious stage of his life. I like that they didn't go backwards with Thor and his silliness as much. Um, and then you have Darcy, which she is funny. Like she always made me laugh. I think a lot of her jokes do land, even though there's times that I feel like they may have been too much, but they do land. And Kat Dennings does a great job in that role, and we get to keep seeing her here on and off throughout the MCU, which is great.
indeed, she deserves the paycheck. I'm glad we will see her
Mhm.
in WandaVision too. I thought she did a great job there. Maybe like a bit too Jar Jar Binksy, but
Mhm.
overall, I have to say I'm impressed with the way Thor movies treat their side characters because I couldn't agree more with what you said. I prefer when Chris Hemsworth is considered to be serious, maybe like sometimes a bit out of place. That's where the best jokes come from.
Right.
But mainly, I like it when this comedy stuff is reserved for the side characters. You know, like the freaking scientist, the Eric. You know, when he runs around naked all over
Oh
Stonehenge,
my
I thought it was
God.
hilarious.
Yep.
And when he then like has this lecture, to the in the asylum, I thought it was great. And I just, yeah, I really love the side characters. It just the jokes land so well for me. And before I let me just finish this tangent because I love the way Sean interrupts the date afterwards. You know, after this awkward scene, after Darcy is like, "Hey, you really need to see this. It's very important." And of course, Natalie Portman will be able to focus. And Sean sees this. He's very introspective. He reads the room. He reads the situation, and he willingly interrupts the date, with Natalie Portman, and he doesn't guilt trip her or anything. He's just like, hey, let's reschedule, go sort out your stuff. And it's just, he's so good. He's such a good guy, and Natalie Portman does not deserve him.
Okay. You really dislike Natalie Portman.
I do, I do. I will tell you that this is, we are simply reaching the summit of my hatred towards her.
Is it just Natalie Portman as Jane, or do you just not like Natalie Portman?
I forgot her name, so just call her Natalie Portman.
um, no, I get it for sure. She is one of the things that I liked about the Thor movies is that the romance, you know, kind of played a factor into them, but she also didn't feel like the movie didn't feel reliant on the romance, but I think with time it made it so that I kind of didn't care about that romance at all, and it made me hard. It made me it made it hard to like cheer for them or cheer for her or even really want her around because it almost seemed like she didn't matter that much. But
I
to
agree.
Thor, it did. She did.
It did, and that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? Thor likes her, and we kind of have to respect that.
Right.
But I didn't really see a lot of chemistry between them, I have to say. I don't know if it's like the actors, but it just didn't really feel like she was still like the best option, for Thor.
Yeah.
Better than Sif, of course, but I'm sorry. Like it is what it is, but I didn't really like the inclusion of Natalie Portman, how they kind of used her in this movie, for her to just kind of randomly be swallowed by the space convergent anomaly and get the ether into her. I thought it was kind of like, I guess we need, the movie to happen, so we're just gonna establish this
Yeah.
very unique opportunity, for her to just randomly be teleported into a different planet to get the freaking space alien smoke into her, and suddenly, whoever touches her, if they mean harm, then they will explode. So it's just kind of weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We need
It,
the
it
movie to
really is what
happen.
it is. So we were talking about Frigga, And just so that we don't skip over this, and if I'm getting too far ahead, you can let me know. But the how do you think her death worked out in this movie? Do you think it deserved more screen time or more emotional weight, or and do you think that the impact on Thor and Loki was sufficient, or was it like lacking something?
I am so sorry because for now I cannot answer this. I first have to establish. I know this is getting old.
No,
I
it's fine.
first need to get over the fact that Natalie Portman is the worst fucking person. But it will be important to answer the question later,
Yeah,
and
I
I
think I
promise
know
I
where
will
you're
get to
going.
it because. You know me at this point, right? You know, whenever we get these sassy scenes, whenever the superhero's love interest showcases that she doesn't need no man, and like, so here is my final argument, and I promise this will be the last time I will bring this up, at least when it comes to Natalie Portman. Why is she the fucking worst in this movie? After the attempted cheating, let's call it that, on Thor, during her lunch date, and after passing out for having a moment, with the Aether, she then wakes up, she sees Thor, and the first thing she does is to slap the shit out of him after not seeing him, for ages, and after cheating on him during the dinner date. She then gets all confused, why she did it, because that's a normal reaction, right? You slap someone first, and then you feel all confused about it. Why the fuck would you do that? Why? Like, did you forget? Like, why did you slap someone? That's called abuse, lady. Okay, whenever you hit someone with all your might because you love them, and then you're like, "Oh, why did I do that?" That's domestic abuse, and she needs to go to prison.
John.
And this is just another typical MCU woman, And just like a typical MCU woman, this is not even the worst thing. She gets even worse because she slaps him again after he gets worried about her, after, he wishes well to her, after he shows care. She just slaps him again, because that's normal reaction. That's what people do, right? In the MCU movies, at least. And then he apologizes for being a god, for being the firstborn of a king, for waging wars to protect all these realms, and for, just saving the world, this little planet called Earth that we kind of care about, or at least New York, however you want to interpret it, from guaranteed extinction, because, we were kind of ambushed by this alien race. We were supposed to get like wiped out, and, we saw it in Avengers. And only then, whenever he mentions all of this, she graciously forgives him. Let it sink in how much of a bad person Natalie Portman is, and that I truly feel strongly about this. But one of the many reasons why I'm mentioning this, I mentioned that Odin is kind of a dick, a senile dick, but he has one redeeming line, and that one comes up right now. Because Odin kind of comes in and saves the day after she's being transported to Asgard, with Thor in Thor's arms. Odin says, and I quote, "She does not belong to Asgard more than a goat belongs to a banquet table." I thought it was a hilarious burn,
That's
and
freaking great.
Odin
Yeah, that was a great
definitely
line.
redeemed himself. He sees her, the all-knowing father, for what she truly is, and I kind of agree with him that Thor shouldn't really be with her.
And that's the kind of thing, right, that solidifies what Odin is, right? Like Odin is more about his position than he is about his family in many ways. Um and it's like his own burden. His own glorious purpose. uh
Indeed, indeed. He, like, it's hard to be a king, right? It's a lot of burden. It's hard raising a family, and he probably tried his best, but that once again brings up, why Frigga is so freaking important. She is who holds this family together. She's the duct tape in the relationship. And Odin himself just
mhm.
wouldn't be up for it. Even though he's very wise and all-knowing, he's kind of a detrimental factor at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, it's two pieces or two halves of a whole for that. Um, and in many ways, like I stated earlier, was like, would Asgard be as successful without Odin? I feel the same way as in like, would Asgard be as successful without Frigga? You know, um,
Yeah,
because she's
they're a
probably
team.
the heart of the people when he's the leadership of the people.
Indeed, indeed. But that's what I love so much about the upcoming movie. We will get to see the actual sins of Odin and the fact that he wasn't always
Agreed.
this
Agreed.
all-knowing, shiny example of wisdom and stuff. And you can be a dick to people if you mean well. If you are doing certain bad things for a reason. But like he's also a conqueror, and he's hiding some stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be amazing. I love the kind of progression, that we get to see of him and like slowly learning about him. And I thought it was real well done, both in this movie and of course in the upcoming ones. But I promise I'm almost done because right now there's just one small thing about Natalie Portman. Whenever she is being treated, because her life is in danger and because these Asgardian doctors are very kind and they care about her well-being. They like analyze her, but she can't help herself, and she has to be like the biggest freaking prick of a patient you could ever imagine because she's like, oh, I'm scientist, please pay attention to me. I want to look smart in front of my boyfriend and his daddy, and she like starts analyzing like all the things that they are doing, even though they're like waving their hands with magic, and she's like, oh, that's science, I know it, I'm a scientist, you pay attention to me. I just hate it. It's like when you bring a child, to a doctor, and he's like, "Oh, I know anatomy. This is a leg." Yes, thank you. I'm also a doctor. So anyway, then we kind of get to see like Odin like giving us a little exposition, actually hinting at the fact that that some of these relics can be in a form of stones. I was like, oh, I know what you did there. I know what stones
Yeah.
you mean. Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. It's so well done. And of course, then we finally are going to get to Frigga, who kindly sends Loki, books to read and educate himself for the rest of eternity. And instead of a cell, she essentially like sorts him out with like a condo, luxurious apartment as a motherhood, because she's a caring mother. And I love that about her, and whenever Loki's like, he's not my father. And am I not your mother? It's like, oh, yes. Ooh,
Got
Frigga's
him.
amazing.
Yep. No, she's
Got him.
great.
Yes.
Yeah, she has some great lines.
Yeah.
And that relationship is great. The which is why I asked before about like how
Mhm.
you felt about like her character and the fact that they kind of she gets killed off. The
It's the most
impact.
heartbreaking part of my MCU journey has been so far. The fact that Loki, of all people, sent the guy, the big freaking hulking monster. That was kind of cool. I did enjoy the roided up elf who's just like so freaking strong. He
Hmm.
sends her he sends him to her room, not even knowing what he's doing. He's just kind of like, yeah, I want to send this guy to kill Odin. But of course, he finds Frigga. I kind of I love the tragic, the
The
sweet sorrow,
tragedy, yeah, that's
in this
exactly what I was
movie
gonna say.
because we get to see like so many aspects of these characters, and the few things that Odin says before we'll get to the main event of this movie. Despite all I have survived, my queen still worries over me. It's only because I worry over you that you have survived. Just what a badass thing to say. If you're Frigga, and then she steals a sword, from a guy and tells Natalie Portman to follow her lead, and I have to bring up Heimdall because, as I mentioned, I just love this movie so much for how it treats the side characters. We get
Hmm.
fucking Heimdall destroying a spaceship with nothing but his daggers. A spaceship with daggers. Let that sink in.
Heimdall is the fucking best.
He's so
Why did
great.
you think I
No,
wanted to play him in?
I know. Heimdall with short hair is the best. Heimdall with long hair, let's say dreads, is kind of
the
ridiculous to
the
me,
dreads,
but
yeah.
we'll get to that. So Asgard has some shitty anti-air defense, let me just say that, but it has Heimdall at the very least. He should be the main line of defense, and he kind of was, because he just single-handedly ripped a ship apart. What a fucking badass. And of course, we get to see the impractical design of the elven ships, which I absolutely hate. Uh, but then we also get to see like how much better the elves are equipped because they have like fucking laser guns and black hole fucking grenades. And what do Asgardians have? They have swords and shields, even though they have like laser swords at some point. But it doesn't really do much, And then we finally get to the most heartbreaking scene of this movie, but also the baddest scene of this movie. Uh, Stand down, creature, and you may still survive this. I have survived worse, woman. I am Malekith, and I will have what is mine. And then fucking Frigga uppercuts him with a sword. Who the fuck uppercuts a guy with a sword? Like, that is such a badass move. And just the way she's fighting for a mere mortal her son is in love with for like a few years before she dies of some unknown disease, I'm sure. She fucking bests him too. The main bad guy of this movie, she beats him.
Yeah. It just shows you how badass she is and how dumb that villain was.
Yeah, but
But
then
no,
of course,
it's God, it was so cool. And also the fact that even happened, right? Like that could have been written differently, but no, like they weren't afraid of making her look like a badass, even if it was in her final moments.
they made her come across as such a badass. She was so strong in this movie, and of course, it took the freaking roided up elf, to kill her, and it was all her plan. She knew what she was doing.
She did,
She
yeah.
was protecting. She conjured up the image of Natalie Portman, the clone, and she absolutely saved her. She saved the day. She saved the universe. You could even say, just and
I love that
we,
connection with her and Loki, by the way. Seeing their similarities in power.
yes, she taught him, how to protect himself. She taught him everything he needed, to thrive and survive. And the fact that she sacrifices her life for Asgard, and then, the Queen of Asgard basically gets a one-way ticket to Valhalla is just so amazing. And
Agreed. Couldn't be me
whenever
though.
we,
I'll tell you that. You, I'm not putting my life on the line for some human person.
and the way, like, whenever Thor sees it and he starts like, like cry, screaming, it's amazing. It's like, no,
So
it
yeah,
was
so
so heartbreaking.
without interrupting you too much, I'm sorry. That's actually kind of exactly what I mean about like the importance of this film and some of the events that happen in this film that get carried on further. This is not a film that let's say if a month from now I'm gonna watch the MCU. I can't skip this movie, even if it's not one of my favorites. I Because there's so many things that happen to so many of the characters that I love that I need to witness these events. I need to experience these events because it leads to way more down the line. And this was it. Like this was like Thor losing part of himself, and it means so much going forward. And Loki.
And oh my goodness, especially Loki. This essentially was like the start of redemption for Loki. He's still gonna be a dick. He's still gonna do his own thing. He's still gonna be
Loki beat Loki.
untrustworthy. He's still gonna betray everyone. But like we get to see the capacity for Loki to actually care, to sacrifice his life for something greater than his or his ambition. He would fight for his mother no matter what. Like she was everything to him, and he probably didn't even know it until she died. But he got the memo, and I just loved everything about this scene. I usually I usually hate it whenever my favorite characters get killed off, for the shock value, for the shock purpose. But this needed to happen, and I'm glad how this was sorted because they really prepared everything for this moment, and it was just amazing. Like the way Thor saw it and reacted to it, and of course when Loki gets informed and just oh my god, I cried whenever Loki just used his, force push to like mess up his room. It was amazing. This was the first time I cried during the MC universe, and I cry
Yeah.
often, during movies whenever there is like a impactful scene, and it definitely is. Yeah, it was a very memorable moment. I cried both times I saw this, and like the beautiful soundtrack that played during this movie.
Oh,
I
that's
am
something
not.
we haven't really talked about a lot in the
Mhm.
MCU. Oh, I think we mentioned it at one point how like the music elevates the moments, but the soundtracks are just perfection most of the time.
Indeed. And I have to bring up the soundtrack especially because the later Thor movies will be all about, like these rock music that you heard or like on the radio in the 80s and 90s, like popular songs, that everyone knows that, hey, we're MCU, we can have the rights, to play these cool ass freaking songs like during a fight.
Yeah.
And I just can't stand it. There are movies where I think this kind of music belongs into Guardians of the Galaxy, without spoiling too much.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great inclusion to these movies because he constantly listens to it on his little Walkman. But in this movie, we actually get to hear like a wonderful, thematically
Score.
coherent and fitting score. Yes, just amazing soundtrack that the the Viking burial scene, that she gets as a queen of Asgard was just amazing. And one could say, it was a bit too long, but I thought it wasn't long enough. It was great,
Yep.
and just it messed up Odin so much. He completely lost it. He turned into like a full-on senile old man, and it
Yeah.
made sense because anyone would, especially like her husband. And I loved so much that Thor was actually reasonable, wise, and came up with a fitting plan afterwards. What do you think about his plan, like to essentially suck out the Aether out of Natalie Portman, lead Malekith away from Asgard, and have this fight on like a unpopulated dark world?
I think it's the most responsible thing to do. Um, because there was a part of him there that I could see as Odin. Like that was such a king decision to make,
Yes,
and I respected it quite a lot.
indeed, indeed. And speaking of Loki and things that I absolutely love, especially as like a future reference, the way Loki hates Captain America and just turns into him and mentions like all the cringy things about like his outfit and like his
Yeah,
shield and like God bless America. It's just so amazing. Like
it's
he turns
hilarious.
into him for no reason. It's amazing. He just fucking hates his guts, and I love it. It's amazing, and like
It's such a great way to put in a cameo too.
it is.
It's awesome. But I before we move on, I want to go back to what you said about like the crime because I do think that we're 9 movies in now, counting this one and Doctor Strange, which is out of order.
Fuck off.
um, and I do believe up to this was probably the hardest scene for me as well. Believe it or not, there hasn't.
Oh,
I know like Iron Man has some rough moments. Iron Man 3, I think possibly almost got me there, but the Iron Man 3 was mostly about personal trauma and going through that, which is rough, but like the loss of family and like you being broken down as a person because of your family, because of your people, because of all of this stuff going on, and quote unquote the person you love, Jane. Um, there's a lot of things here that are just more than self, and I think that it also impacted me a lot more than previous movies.
yeah, I feel like anyone with a heart, must be like, hey, this kind of hits close to home. Like, no matter where you come from, no matter if you experience something like this, or if perhaps you lost a family member, it's just very relatable and it's very well written. And I
Hmm.
really appreciate this movie because of it. I know I sometimes hyper focus on certain parts of these movies, and it either breaks or makes the movie for me. And I apologize for it. You are very well justified to kind of call me out on that and for being a hypocrite. But as we mentioned, previously, it doesn't matter what makes you like these movies, as long as there is something that you
Right.
enjoy, as long as there is something you appreciate about it, and you're able to verbalize it, you're able to put your finger on it and be like, wow, this is just one of those things that I. You know how there are just certain movies or TV shows where you just want certain things to happen, but the director or the actors just do the exact opposite thing, and like, oh, this was like such a good
Mm-hmm.
pitch, I really like the premise of this, but I wish they would have done the 180, the exact opposite. But then there are like a few shows or a few movies, like like the Penguin Show, where just you hope for certain things to happen, and just everything clicks, everything goes
Yep.
exactly how you want it to. And this movie was kind of that for me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There's so many movies that I'm like, I wish you went left instead of right, but it is what it is, Like, I feel like it would have been stronger if you went left instead of right, but you had a vision, you went with it, and that doesn't mean I get to like completely dislike everything else that I like about this movie, which is kind of the important thing to remember about. If you go in wanting to hate something, then you'll most likely hate it. But if you go in and you try to pick things that you really enjoy and you hold on to that, most of these you will find something to enjoy. And
Yeah,
I say most.
indeed. You are not always owed to get what you want, right?
Agreed.
We can still enjoy these movies even though they don't do exactly what we want them to do. We can even be surprised at certain points, like the scene, with the Scarlet Witch, not the Scarlet Witch, sorry, the Scarlett Johansson.
Black Widow.
So I
Mhm.
remember, yes, thank you. That just completely surprised me. I hated the direction, but it was like they pulled a rug on me, and couldn't be
Mhm.
happier. So I am man enough to admit, that I get surprised, even though I want certain things to happen. Sometimes things can just exceed my expectations or my hopes, and this is why, and this is like a huge tangent. This is why I love video games so much as a narrative medium, because there are certain games that allow you to influence the story and to give you several paths, several endings, and potentially even like several journeys to take as the journey goes. And I love that so much because you can then make everyone happy, or at least as many people as possible.
Or make no one happy except for yourself. But it's all your choice, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
which is why I think that
Cyberpunk.
you would like Baldur's Gate. But, moving on.
Fuck you. I love Cyberpunk because of this, because
Right. Yeah.
I fully understand that we could have done several things here, but I just like this one ending, and I'm always picking it because that's my ending, and I am just so glad that there are several endings, where he gets to, for example, end up with Panem, happily ever after. 'Cause I can hate Panem, I hate Panem, she's the worst, and I just want him to die and be miserable. So
Wow.
that's
I
my
guess we'll
ending.
have to have a conversation about Cyberpunk at some point.
Oh
Hating
yes,
Pana. Oof. All right.
fucking Panem.
Um, let's not cross that one. But yeah, there's like I said, there's so many good things to like about this movie. But unfortunately for me, it always comes down to how much fun I have watching a movie and how many times I can rewatch said movie. And this one is kind of at the bottom of the barrel for me. I apart from all of the emotional moments don't mean rewatchability for me. And that's kind of
They can be
why
exhausting, right?
they could be emotionally exhausting. And sometimes I watch movies for the entertainment value, not to be emotionally drained. and um and I think that that's kind of what happens to this. Now, for the bigger picture, this is definitely a piece of the puzzle you don't want to miss. But so, why do you think, though, that this movie is often ranked like at the bottom of most MCU lists? Is it because of what I'm saying? You think like most of us, casual, not casual, but comic book fans, want that the high action, the humor, the entertainment value? Do you think that that's why most people stay away from this?
I hate profiling people. I hate kind of objectifying them, but I kind of have to, because the way I kind of see like a typical MCU fan is someone who goes to the cinema with like a bucket of popcorn filled with butter and like a Coke, in his right hand, and they just want to be entertained. They just want to see action. They want to see a spectacle. They want to get their money's worth, and this was slow. This was dark. The jokes in this one weren't exactly your typical MCU jokes. This was serious, and this had a lot of depth that I feel like would be detrimental to the cinema experience, or even
Hmm.
someone who just wants to put on like a cool superhero movie, in the background. And the way Thor 1 started this MCU journey focused on Thor, this was a deviation from it. And I think
Right.
that when you combine all of these aspects, it's a guarantee for not exactly a successful movie. I saw this as an evolution. I saw this as an improvement, but I fully understand why others would see it the exact opposite way.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're completely right. And I think whenever you deviate from the themes that most people are going for in a cinematic experience, you are going to get the people that will call it either boring, which I don't necessarily think it's boring. A movie could be slower paced and have more meaning, and I think that that's kind of what this one is slower paced, but it's more character focused. And up to this point, or up to, let's say, like Iron Man 3, which is also kind of more thematically serious, there hasn't been a lot of character centric, or like let's slow down and let's get into the emotional nitty grittiness of it. And I think that that's kind of what this phase is about.
I love it that they not just these movies have their own themes and consistency. These phases have it too. It's just so amazing. Oh my god, I just love that this phase is so dark and filled like with similarly like eerie and dark movies.
Yeah, yeah. I wish that I could find the comparison that somebody made once that it was so awesome. Talking about like the basic premise of each phase, like trauma um and grief and things like that, because it was so it was even easier to see the overall picture when you look at what that the theme for all these movies are.
Indeed, indeed. I know that we've been here for a long time and we're slowly getting to the end. So I'll just kind of like finish the description, or not description, like what happens next. We're getting to the skippable parts of this movie. Of course, we get to see the plan of Loki and Thor. Then of course we get yet another heartbreaking moment where Loki sacrifices his life to protect Natalie Portman, and he gets killed in the most coolest way possible. By the big creature that he stabs first, the roided up elf, and then like
Hmm.
the elf grabs him and like shoves him in his own sword that pierced him, and it's just such a cool moment. And I do kind of dislike the fact that we get to see Loki being redeemed, die with honor, with dignity, and
Yeah.
then of course he's not dead, and somehow the all-knowing father, the all-seeing father, does not see through his charade and doesn't suspect anything, and just you know then of course Loki replaces Odin, which I also thought was kind of dumb because in this movie he actually did a great job of impersonating him, but in the upcoming movie he will do a shitty job, complete
Yeah.
180. So like I didn't mind it in this one, but in the upcoming one I will absolutely hate it. So just a spoiler. And the last thing that I will quote, the last notes that I have for this movie are things that need to be quoted because this movie is all about extremely strong dialogues and one-liners and of course the side characters being complete badasses and one of the strongest things that anyone has ever said in the MCU movie was, "You called me here on an urgent matter. What is it?" "Treason, my lord." "Whose?" "Mine." At this moment, I was just screaming with primal strength coming through my voice, being like, "Yeah, fuck yeah! You tell him!" So badass.
I just feel
My
like in the
God.
future of like any role playing, John's just gonna be pulling out quotes.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm stealing this one.
Oh yeah. So
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, no, go for it.
No, I was gonna ask about the end credit stuff, but if you have more points to make, we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah, just a very few more. I'll tell father what you did today. I didn't do it for him. It was one of those other tear-jerking moments, Could
For
barely
sure.
hold it together.
I
And,
think
then, of course,
I don't
go for
know
it.
if it's the fantasy or I mean, the mythology of it all, but some of like Thor and these type of movies and Loki, I feel like they have some of the best lines in all of the MCU.
They truly do. The brothership between them is just such a strong character development aspect, and they did a great job with both of them. And I just love this movie because of it so very much. And one last joke that I could have written down that I thought was very clever and very well done was whatever they were like at the convergent moment, where they could transport themselves back to Earth, and Natalie Portman's phone rings, and Thor just kind of looks at her, and he's like, "It's not me." It's great. Another like very subtle joke, but
Right.
just so well executed. And of course, it was Richard saving the day one more time,
Hmm.
because without him, they wouldn't get back to Earth to save it. Just amazing. What a guy. What a wonderful guy. And yeah, that's basically all I have. I guess we could end it with I'd rather be a good man than a great king.
Damn. Damn, that's a good one. I'm gonna write that one down.
See, just so many quotable things, so many quotable lines. Incredible. I adore it.
I was gonna make a political joke, but I'm not. The the so I was gonna say, or I was gonna try to wrap up with so where does this, I'm really curious, where does this land in your ranking?
As always, I'd rather hear yours first.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna repeat all of my rankings because this one is last for me. Uh at number 9 for me, I don't find myself rewatching this movie very often, and I don't find myself having a lot of fun because it's not meant to be like a fun ride. The So I actually put it under the Incredible Hulk.
Interesting.
It won't be there for long. What about you?
I'll start from the very last one, which is still Iron Man 1. Then it's Iron Man 2. Then it's Thor, the first one. Then it's Captain America. Then it's Iron Man 3. Then it's Doctor Strange. Then it's the Hulk. And my favorite movie of the MCU universe for now is the Thor: The Dark World.
Holy crap. It could not be any more different. We're a complete opposite sides of the spectrum.
To be perfectly transparent and honest, I only put Thor: The Dark World on top of my rankings after watching it for the third time.
Really? See, and that's kind of what
Yeah,
I mean. A lot of these movies will change based on rewatches, which is kind of amazing. And they also change based on you completing the MCU, which, that's why it's like I I I tell people that, yeah, pick the ones that you want to watch if you don't want to watch them all. But if you can watch them all, watch them all because the entire story might change your opinion of certain movies.
exactly. Like, if I were to only pick, like the best rated movies or the ones that, like people on my Discord would have recommended, I would have totally skipped this one because everyone hates it, and it's my
Right.
favorite movie.
Yeah. I mean, and I can see why because you lean a lot more towards character, uh, emotions and all that stuff. But you look kind of like for the opposite stuff that the the common comic book fan wants out of a movie experience. The and I respect that. So and that's why I appreciate that you didn't just do the hey pick like watch these movies. It's like, well, watch them all, form your own opinion, and right now your opinions vastly like differ from mine, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, it would be like watching like your favorite episodes from a TV show, right? You would never do that. That would be fucking stupid.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Like because it is all like one series, right? At the end of the day. So it's like, hey, let's pick episode 4 and watch that. What?
Right? You need the filler, you need the entire picture, you need the context. Otherwise, you're just missing so many things. And I would even say that the MCU watch along or the MCU experience gets better the more you understand it, the more
Agreed.
you watch it.
Yeah, the more pieces that are falling into place, the better that it is. Or the more that you dislike certain things, but it helps you form an a complete opinion.
Indeed. And I'm surprised I like this movie so much after my third rewatch because I'm usually also like narratively driven. I don't just enjoy these movies for the characters, but with this one, it just kind of overcame everything. Even the flaws in this movie, all of these movies, of course, have their own flaws,
Hmm.
but the strengths of them are just shining through more than anything. And this one I just enjoyed so very much. I love the humor, I love the
It's pretty
characters, I
awesome.
love the side characters, I love the main characters. I love the hating on Natalie Portman because I thought it was hilarious how bad of a character she was. And I loved it all.
Well, there we are, John. This is Thor: The Dark World. Wow, you have it in first place. I have it in last place. I think this is probably the most that we've disagreed on a ranking. But well, I guess with Iron Man as well, since you have that pretty low. Um, but
Yet we both see each other's points, right? We
we
both
do,
respect
yeah.
it. And it's
And
not like a disagreement like you are totally wrong. It's like, oh wow, I can see how you would like this or dislike this.
yeah, and it's great because at the end of the day, it where we place them in our rankings or what we enjoy about these movies is personal preferences. And one of the things that I hate about like people online or people that like attack other people's opinions is that they think their opinion is fact, and that like if they think this movie's number one, then that movie is number one. But movies are subjective, and everyone enjoys them differently. And I think that that's kind of why even when we disagree on where a movie should be placed, we can respect why the other person enjoys different aspects of it.
Indeed. And that's why I'm so glad we're not doing like percentage rankings or we don't give it like stars, like 5-star movie or something like that out of five. It just makes no sense because unless you define exactly what these criterias are, then it's kind of impossible to judge these movies
No,
objectively because we're not objects or we're not able
yeah.
to exercise objective thinking over something that is just so subjective on every single fundamental level.
Yeah, and my wife and I used to grade every movie that we would see in theaters, just and rank it like that. But the truth is that when you watch movies individually, you can grade a movie based on what that experience was, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that grade is better than a different movie. Just because I gave a comedy 4 stars doesn't make that movie better than a drama that I gave 3.5 stars. It's comparing oranges to apples.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
love the fact that we decided to do it like this, just have like what's our favorite movie, from this series and what's our like least favorite one, and then we can just put the rest in the middle.
yeah, I wish that I could say that that was easier because it gets to the point that it's not very easy, but it's easier, I should say. Um, so lastly, let's finish on. We know exactly what the post credit is, which is teasing Guardians of the Galaxy. How did you feel about this post credit scene, and do you think it did a good job at building up the excitement for Guardians?
It gave us the final answer. It gave us the collector, and it finally, answered that these are the Infinity Stones, and there are two of them that we know of, and something's going on. Whenever I first watched it, or second times I watched it, I thought that this collector will essentially be the Thanos-like character, that he wants them. He made it very clear, in the post-credit scene. So, like, I actually find this to be a bit confusing because in the upcoming movies that he will appear in, he doesn't really seem like someone who wants to collect them, even though it makes sense for him. Yeah. They kind of replace him with Thanos afterwards, so I thought this was like a bit of a missed opportunity. They could have perhaps done this a bit different, but it built up intrigue. It made me want to see what's going to happen next, and I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things it literally is what his name is, the collector, right? Like, it wasn't about what they could do or what he could do with them. He just wanted them, I guess. he just wanted the things.
It was weird.
Yeah, it
obviously looks like someone shady, and you shouldn't give like one of the most important, powerful weapons, dangerous weapons in the universe to someone like that, right? That has slaves and that, like, I don't know, imprisons people and just weird. You should just kind of dig a hole on like a random planet and hide it there and have like one person who knows about it. That would be much more safer, in my opinion.
I agree. Well, remember when I said this wasn't going to be an hour and 15 minutes? It is an hour and 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
At least I was right.
Well, on my end, it's 1 hour and 17 minutes, along with the pre-show, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not counting the pre-show.
I just think it's funny that some of these we're always like, this is going to be a short one. And then we get to talking about them, and then our opinion varies, and we keep talking about it.
I was really looking forward to this episode because I knew that you would want to be done with it as soon as possible, and I would constantly be interrupting you and trying to convince you that this is the best movie in the MCU so far.
It's yeah. It's not, but I respect your opinion. No, but yeah, next, what do we have next? Is it Guardians?
No. It would make sense to watch Guardians next, but it is the Winter Soldier.
Oh, okay. Winter Soldier. That's going to be a good conversation.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but Winter Soldier is next. So that's pretty much a wrap for this episode of the Nerd Haven podcast. John, thank you for hanging out. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, stay nerdy, I guess. Oh, I have a catchphrase now.
Is that our catchphrase? Wow. Organically developed too. Wonderful.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, sir. I apologize for interrupting you throughout this movie, but it was very important to me, and I appreciate everyone who listened. And I also would like to apologize for being very critical towards Natalie Portman if she ever listens to this podcast. I don't actually know her as a person, but the character in this movie I felt very compelled to criticize, and I hope that you can find at least some merits in my treatise, in my critique on Natalie Portman's character. And please don't hold it against me, because there will be some other characters that I will be extremely positive about. We're getting to them very soon. So,
yes, and I actually love you, Padme.
Padme was great. Padme is life. But
Bye.
Bye.